Hi folks, my name is Marie Levy-Pabst and I help parents reclaim their time and energy. And one of the ways I do that is by teaching a class called Delegate and Delete. And I wanted to hop on here today to talk about 3 ways to delegate both tasks in your life, household tasks, but also the mental load, that sort of mental burden we carry of remembering, noticing, planning, all of that. So those are 3 pretty concrete ways to delegate. So first of all, just important to note what delegation is. So to delegate something means to ensure a task to somebody else. It literally means to say, I'm supposed to do this thing, but instead I'm going to have you do this thing instead of me. All right, so it means to give the task or give the job or give the responsibility to somebody else. All right. So usually we think about delegating in terms of literally having another person do it, but there's actually 3 different ways to delegate. One is to give a task or something to another person, like another person besides you. The second is to actually give it to your future self, and I'll talk about some strategies for that, but to treat almost your present self and your future self as different people. This really helps alleviate the mental load of remembering. The third one is to delegate to a system, so not another person, but a system who will do some of the work for you. So we'll talk about all 3 of those really briefly today. The first one is delegating to other people. And this is what we think of most commonly. So it's when you ask somebody else to do something. If someone's at work, that means saying, okay, after a meeting, we have all these action items. Joe, you're going to do this. Margaret, you're going to do this, whatever it is. At home, sometimes it can mean saying which partner is going to do which thing, or delegating certain tasks to your children, like getting their backpacks ready when they're old enough. What I find, however, is that many people think about delegating tasks. So they'll say, like, okay, you're in charge of cooking and I'm in charge of the dishes. But they don't necessarily delegate the mental load. So for example, for a while, and still, I tend to do most of the meal planning in our house. And then there was one week where I just couldn't do it. I had too much going on with work. So I asked my partner, my spouse, I said, oh, can you be in charge of dinners this week? He said, of course, I can do that. Like, you're busy. It's fine. Great. All great. Monday rolls around. He says, what's for dinner? I said, well, you're in charge of dinners this week. He goes, oh, I thought you were going to tell me what to make. So he had no problem cooking. No problem to all that, but we didn't communicate well that I wanted to delegate not just the task, but the mental load as well for that week. So when you're delegating to another person, it's really important, one, to be clear. Am I delegating a task to you? I'm taking care of the mental load of remembering and planning, but you're doing the task. Or am I delegating all of it to you? Right? And it can go either way. Another thing that we do in our household is we have a cleaning list. So I'm in charge of knowing what needs to be cleaned, and then we delegate the tasks. We share the tasks of cleaning, but I do the thinking about it. It's one way to do it. It's also really important if you're delegating a task or a job to another person. This is important. All of you type A folks, you're my people. When you delegate a task to another person, you don't get to judge how it's done. This is hard. This is so hard. This is why it drives me nuts. There's some things that in our household I'm not in charge of, and my partner is, and he doesn't do them the way I would do them. And sometimes it makes me twitchy. But we have to let that go, because at some point you have to say either I'm delegating it completely and letting go of it, or I want to be in charge of it. But we can't have it both ways. So just to remember, we have to kind of let go of that judgment a little bit when we delegate a task. And often that's one of the hardest parts for folks. Okay, so that was number 1, delegating a task to another person. Number 2 is delegating something to your future self. All right, so this is actually very helpful, because a lot of times we are thinking about things we need to do that we're not going to do right now. We're going to do them in a week or 2 weeks, or to do them in a month, but yet we still let them hang around in our head. We still kind of remember them or think about them. And if we really want to let go of them, one way to do that is to delegate them to our future self. So you can literally do this by saying, in a month I need to pay this bill, and make a reminder I use Google Calendar, right? Make a reminder in Google Calendar, post-it in a calendar, write it down somewhere on a calendar, so that the system will remember for you and remind you when that day comes up to do that thing, to pay that bill. So that's one way to do it, to literally delegate the task to your future self. Another way to do it is actually to delegate the thinking to your future self. This is often overlooked. So if you're trying to figure out something to do, and one example for me right now is my kids' room, we're trying to rearrange it, we need to figure out a better system for it. But honestly, it's summer, we're not inside that much, I don't want to deal with it right now. So what I did is I actually set up a reminder in Google Calendar in February 1st of 2018. It says, think about the kids' room. That's all it says. It's a reminder to my future self to make a decision and do some thinking. I don't have to think about it right now. I don't have to look at the room and wonder about it right now and think, oh, I should be doing that. It's delegated to my future self, not just to do, but actually to think about. So delegating to your future self using a calendar is really helpful. Number 3 is delegating to a system. Right, and this is especially good for the mental load. Quite frankly, this idea of using a reminder system to remind you to do stuff and think about it is one way to delegate to the system. What you're delegating is the remembering part, right? That's part of the mental load is remembering. So you're delegating that to Google Calendar or whatever reminder system you use. Another thing to do is to do planning, like when you're thinking about a bigger project or trying to figure out something, to do some planning in a system, and then the system holds it for you. So I actually use a notebook, and I have project lists. I don't know if you can see this, but I have project lists. And what I do is when I'm figuring out a project, whether it's my kid's birthday or rearranging a room or something for work, I write it all down, all my notes, all my thinking about it in one place. And then I come back to it later. But what I've done is I've taken the mental load of planning and remembering, and it's in the notebook. So I've alleviated the mental load. I still have to do the tasks, right? I can't delegate all the tasks, but the mental load of thinking, remembering, noticing, planning, that all lives in the system, not in my head. Okay. So just to recap, 3 ways to delegate. You can delegate to other people, but then you can't judge how they do the work. You can delegate to your future self, and you can both delegate tasks and also thinking work. And last, you can delegate to a system. You can use a system like Project Sheets, which is the organized parent system, or you can use systems like reminders to actually do some of the remembering, planning, and thinking for you. All right. I know it was a long video, but I want to make sure you really understood that delegation is not just about having another person do a thing. There's a lot of pieces there, but all of them can be really, really helpful in lifting up the mental load. And one more reminder that this coming up in September, I'm going to be running the Organized Parent Workshop as well as many others helping you manage the mental load. So I'll leave a link in the comments. I'd love to have you join me for these workshops. We're really going to be focused on letting go of the mental load, putting it in a system so you can maximize time and energy on the things that matter most and minimize time and energy on the rest. Thank you so much for watching.